The Nashville Predators were crowned the winners of last year's offseason, but the regular season was anything but victorious. Can a quiet offseason and a fresh start be what saves this middling franchise? This is the 2025-26 deep dive on the Nashville Predators. Hello and welcome back to team number 26 on my NHL deep dive series, the Nashville Predators. And like I said in the intro, this is a team that really went out and threw a ton of money at players last summer. And they really were hoping that was going to rejuvenize this core and that they've built kind of around Filip Forsberg, Roman Josi, and Juuse Saros, and they felt like the time was ticking on those players, and it was time to really go all in on that core, and the team really bottomed out last season. And clearly, I think they'll be better than that because I have them 26th right now in my power rankings. But it's hard to say that this team's going to be significantly better because they really didn't do much, right? Like all their big moves happened last season, and basically none of them worked, right? Like Steven Stamkos was fine, Jonathan Marchessault was okay, Brady Shea was terrible, and that was about it, right? Like those were the guys they brought in, and none of it really moved the needle for this team at all. And everybody's kind of a year older now, right? Like that was an aging core going into it, and now they're even older. So it's a team that is in a strange spot in terms of where they should be here because they don't really have this insane prospect pool. Like it's not bad, but it's not like super deep, and the core they have is older and really doesn't have a lot of time left to be any better than what they were last year, right? Like there's nothing going into the season where I can say these guys are all going to bounce back, right? And aside from Filip Forsberg, who was also really good last year, it's hard to really pinpoint anything that was extremely successful, right? Like Roman Josi had a good year. Saros was fine, but again, it was another relatively off season for a guy who's typically been a top 3 to 5 goal in the NHL, and they need a lot of things to kind of go right here for this team to turn it around. And they invested a ton into this core, and this was kind of like Barry Trotz's all-in move before he even had a chance to really get his feet wet, right? Like he just kind of dove all in right at the start, and that it makes it difficult to kind of recalibrate after that, because this was kind of his let's go for it move really at the start of his run, and it completely whiffed, right? Like it completely missed. And as we look at the team ranks here, 27th in offense, 24th in defense, 11th in goaltending, 12th in special teams, and 31st in coaching culture. And I think it kind of speaks for itself, right? This team couldn't score last season. The name value of this team probably seems like 27th is low, but they couldn't score, right? Like this is a team that just could not generate any kind of offense. And you think some of that might regress back to where we thought it was going to be, but there's also the chance that it just doesn't happen because again, this is an aging unit, right? And I kind of have to just base it off of what I've seen on the ice the last year or two, and that's where they ended up. And same with the blue line, right? Like obviously you have Roman Josi, who really is doing the heavy lifting on that 24th ranking, but he's getting older. He can't do it by himself anymore, and they really haven't put anything around him. I mean, Brady Shea was not the number 2 guy that they thought he was going to be, that they paid him to be. And that 7x7 contract's looking real brutal right now. And there's really nothing else around him, right? Like it's Justin Barron, who they really like, Nick Blankenberg. They brought in Nick Perbix this year, who I like and we'll talk about. But none of that jumps out to me as oh my god, this is great. And then 11th in goaltending is it's really hard for me to not believe in Juuse Saros because he's just been so consistent last 5 years. But last year was a lot more similar to the year before, where he kind of took a step back 2 years ago as well, and that 11th ranking might drop pretty fast here, and that's tough. The special teams is actually pretty good. They're really efficient. They have a ton of really good guys. I mean, Marchessault and Stamkos obviously are going to be good on the power play. Same with Josi and Forsberg. I think that foursome is one of the better groups of 4 in the league. Right, it's definitely the top half in terms of power play talent. But And the special teams, the penalty kill is not bad, and coaching culture. I mean, Barry Trotz is arguably the worst GM in the league. I think him and Kevin Adams are like 1A, 1B at this point. And Andrew Burnett, he hasn't proven it to me since he left Florida, right? Like, he hasn't looked like the same coach that he was in Florida. So I couldn't really go much higher than that. There's a couple teams that are hovering around that bottom tier, so you could argue them up or I guess not really down, but up a couple spots from there. But for the most part, they're in that bottom tier. But as we look in the coaching culture, I mean, Barry Trotz, as we talked about, it seems like everything that he's touched has just been a mess, and all the players they moved on from have had crazy success, right? Like, I look at Alex Carrier, for instance, as kind of the big one, where they obviously make the trade for Justin Barron, and Alex Carrier became a huge part of the Canadiens' run, and Justin Barron just kind of disappeared after that, and that's kind of the epitome of what this team is. I mean, you look at the Jonathan Marchessault acquisition, the Steven Stamkos acquisition, where both players were fine, but like they weren't great. And then Brady Shea, who like came from the Carolina defenseman factory, and everybody was kind of like, yeah, he's probably gonna regress, right? Like, he didn't look very good outside of Carolina. He goes to Carolina, looks great, and then it's not great, right? Like, the Carolina system is very similar to like what the New England Patriots were under Bill Belichick defensively, where they could just plug in anybody and make them look great, and then as soon as they left, they look like trash. And that's just kind of how the Hurricanes, like any defender that the Hurricanes like move off from, you should just kind of be like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't touch him. And yeah, I think that's like Brady Shea is kind of a perfect example of that, where somebody that was a project player coming in that didn't have a ton of consistency, and then Carolina brings him in, turns him into a top 4 defenseman, and then they let him go, and they're fine, and Nashville now has to pay for the repercussions of that. And then that's where Andrew Burnett, he's somebody that I had a really high expectations for going in to this job in Nashville. I really like the hire, and he really hasn't been able to prove it yet overall. And I don't think the roster is terrible, so I have less of a leash on him in terms of like where the production is. I don't think the roster's that good, but like I don't think it's not like San Jose a couple years ago bad. So I don't know. Like I have concerns there, and then obviously I have them as a tweener team because I don't think that they're necessarily a rebuilder. They don't see themselves as a rebuilder, and they're not in a position to move out any of these guys. So like I can't really call them a rebuilder at that point either. And we look at last year, and the power play is definitely a thing that jumps out to you, right? The power play and the penalty kill, honestly, like we're both pretty good. The power play percentage 15th, the penalty kill was 8th. So like a really really strong overall group. In terms of their percentages and their expected numbers during those were actually pretty matched up pretty well with those. In some cases, like for instance, their power play should have actually been like their expected stats say it should have been better than it was. So like there's potential room for improvement there as well. And I guess you can say the same thing about their regular totals too, right? Like 32nd in goals for, but 19th in expected goals for. It seems like there could be some development there. Goals against, same thing, right? 20th in goals against, but expected goals against for 20th. So like if you could even those out, right, and Nashville could get to like 19th and 20th around in goals for and goals against, and their power play is a top half of the league unit, and their penalty kills a top 10 unit. Maybe Nashville's pushing for a playoff spot, right? And maybe UC Saros bounces back a little bit. Like there is a world here where the Predators could kind of turn this around if their expected numbers come back to like if they get some PDO, but with an older unit, it's hard for that to be necessarily the case, and so that's what kind of concerns me, right? Is that like, yeah, the possibility's there, but it's hard to see that. Like it's easier to see, PDO regression when you have a younger team that's also developing, right? Because you also get the development boost in that as well, so that kind of helps mitigate some of the turnover as well. And with an older core like this, it's harder for that to happen. But I'm not saying that it's necessarily impossible. I think the numbers here point to a team that could have a bit of a regression this season, back to being the fringe playoff team that we kind of all saw them as last year. And if they can do that, then I think a lot of the Barry Trotz hate will calm down a little bit, because obviously they'll be performing where they should have been. We look at the offense here, and it at the moment it paints a pretty bleak picture, right? Like Philip Forsberg is easily the best player on this team in terms of forwards, but there is a couple other guys that are fairly interesting. Like Steven Stamkos was somebody they brought in. Jonathan Marchand, another guy they brought in last summer. Luke Evangelista is somebody that I really like, and I think is underrated. I think he's overplayed for what he is. Michael Bunting again was, I think, a pretty low risk bet that the Predators took that I didn't hate. Ryan O'Reilly's getting up there in age. We'll see if he ends up being on this team for a while. Eric Hallow is somebody they got this summer, which we'll talk about him. But they also have some interesting young players, right? Like Fedor Svechnikov, Zachary Leroux are both guys that are interesting to me as guys who could push up this lineup in terms of having an impact this season. And I think there'll be a lot of room for that because of the volatility of where the top six is right now. And the first guy I want to talk about here is Philip Forsberg. And Philip Forsberg offensively is like one of the best. He's so underrated. He's definitely like one of the best offensive wingers in the league. I'm pretty confident in saying that. I mean, his goals and assist numbers are near the top of the league. His individual expected goals is near the top of the league. The problem is that his defensive numbers aren't very good, and that's where you get some pause here overall. But like the thing is, though, is if you can outmatch, right? Like the conversation about pure offensive wingers and like, oh, well, they can't play a two-way game, right? They don't have a defensive game. But like if you're able to outpace your defensive lapses, then it really doesn't matter, right? Like as long as you're a net positive for your team, and clearly Philip Forsberg is, it's fine. Like it's not that big of a deal, right? Because like if you, like you could allow let's say 10 goals per 60 minutes, right? But if you're getting 15 goals per 60 minutes, then you're still a net positive of 5 for your team, right? So as long as that's the case, right? There's been players where that's not the case with high offensive players, but in Philip Forsberg's case, like he is still a net positive for the Predators. So really, the defensive numbers don't really worry me as much as they would for other offensive first wingers that maybe aren't being able to make that up. But like overall, like he's still one of the most dynamic offensive players in the league. Like he was at 76 points last year. So you have to be pretty happy with that overall, especially considering like the lack of points that were coming from the rest of the players on the Predators. I'm expecting Philip Forsberg to still have another really productive season. Steven Stamkos is the guy that needs to bounce back, right? Like at the end of the day, this is a guy here that needs to find his game again, and his finishing is still there, right? He's still one of the better finishers in the league, but he just needs to be able to. And going into this 35 season, it's going to be tough, but like he needs to be able to get back to being a threat offensively. And it really feels like last year he just kind of disappeared, right? Like the Lightning replaced him with Jake Gensel, and they couldn't be happier, right? It was like, okay, it was kind of sad seeing him go, but we're going to let him go and we'll see what happens. And man, it seems like it was definitely the right choice for them. Now, his power play is still very effective. He's super effective just as a spot-up shooter on the power play, and it's definitely contributing to the Predators' success on the power play. But you really need to see him start being a little bit more of a play driver, and if not him, somebody like other than Philip Forsberg needs to be. Maybe that's where Jonathan Marchand steps in. But Stamkos is somebody that needs to be able to put up first line goal totals. That's what they're paying him for, right? Like they signed him for $8 million. That's not nothing. And he needs to play like an $8 million player. And at 35, it's going to be hard to get that kind of production out of him. But the Predators need it, and that's kind of the story is that they need to get that production, right? Like there's no excuse at this point. Like you're paying him that kind of money. He needs to prove it. And last year was a down year for him as an offensive productive player. And if Nashville's going to succeed, he needs to bounce back. And another player who needs to bounce back is Jonathan Marchand. And again, the point totals were fine. I think he was second on the team in scoring. But again, like the power play numbers were good, right? Like that's not the problem, but it's the 5-on-5 numbers, it's the play driving, it's what he did in Vegas that made him so effective that needs to come back. And if he can find some of that game, then all of a sudden the Predators look like a threat in a very tough Central Division. But it's so many questions, right? Because you're talking about older players here. You're talking about guys who are going to struggle and are going to have those issues, and those are the questions that are going to come up with this team overall. And it's really going to be an interesting situation to see if they can get some production from these guys who they're paying to be first line players, right? Like, this isn't like if Jonathan Marchessault was brought in to be their fourth best player on offense, then yeah, he had a fine season last year, but you're paying him to be a top line player on a team that's trying to compete for a playoff spot. It needs to be better than that. Michael Bunting, I think, is underrated. Again, really strong power play numbers, right? You can add this to the reason why this power play is still going to be very effective, and the offense is there. I'm curious to see what he looks like here on a full-time basis, right? I think that he had flashes when he got to Nashville. I'm very curious to see what he looks like as a full-time player, because if he can be an effective second-line winger again, that does help mitigate some of the regression from guys like Stamkos and Marchessault. So Michael Bunting's kind of an X factor for this team. His defense isn't great, but it's middle of the pack. It's fine. But if he can be a good secondary scoring option for this team, getting in the 60-point range if possible, that becomes really, really legitimizes the top six for the Predators, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Right now, he bounced around a little bit. Obviously, Carolina was an experiment that really didn't work out great. Pittsburgh was an interesting pickup for him, obviously in the Gensel move, and then trading him to Nashville. I thought it was an interesting pickup for the Predators. I liked it at the time. I still like it. I think it's a good bet. And if he can be that secondary option for this team, and those other guys can kind of regress back to the mean a little bit, Nashville could be, their offense could still pick it up, right? I think there's still some hope in this team because of the amount of talent that's on it, despite the results last season, and Michael Bunting would be a big part of that. Ryan O'Reilly is another case here that he's interesting, right? Now, I had him an 84. I think that he's still, like, his results, his big stats are still good, but this is an example where, the little things that he does are starting to regress, and I think that 84 that I had him at can drop pretty quickly. Defensively, he's still not bad. He's able to get good, defensive zone puck touches. His retrievals are still really good. His successful exits are still very good, but it's all the offensive stuff that's really starting to come down here, and we saw that last year, right? And the question is, right, these weren't necessarily issues the year before. It's just another one of those players that's kind of, that hit a wall at the same time, and it seemed like everybody on Nashville hit this wall at the exact same time, and that's part of the optimism, right? Is that maybe some of these guys can re-find it, even if half of them can re-find it. That'll help the team significantly. And Ryan O'Reilly is one of those players, man, because he's really like the true number one center on this team, right? Steven Stamkos at this point. Although some sites are listing him as the top line center. And that's where I did because Puckpedia has him as the number one line center. But, like, Ryan O'Reilly is really the true, like, pure number one center on this team. And he just didn't show it last year either, right? And maybe that means that, he's somebody that teams are looking at as a possible trade target, right? Like, there's a lot of teams looking for a second line center right now. And a lot of them would line up for Ryan O'Reilly. I just don't know if that's necessarily somebody that the Predators look to move. That might be a move that admits that their season's over. So we'll see, right? Like, he's an interesting player in terms of that, but he, again, needs to have a bounce back. I think giving him somebody like Bunting for a season will help in that because it will relieve some of that pressure, at least from like an offensive play driving perspective. If Bunting can continue to play as like an underappreciated second line forward, that will help Ryan O'Reilly's overall game as well because it'll take some of that pressure off him as like a primary play driver. Luke Evangelista is, again, like a super fascinating player. I really like Luke Evangelista. I just think that his full results haven't really caught up to some of his underlying stuff, right? I think he does a lot of things, like a lot of small things really, really well. It's just like off the rush, he's extremely good. He's one of the best rush offense wingers in the league. It's just a matter of like, there's no finishing, right? Like he shoots a lot, doesn't score a lot, and some of his chances aren't like super high danger, right? Like he feels like somebody who like the Hurricanes would love, right? Like really what I see here. But I think that his ability to lead rushes is super impactful, and again, like I think would pair fairly well on a line with a Ryan O'Reilly who really can't do that anymore, right? Like if you take that pressure off Ryan O'Reilly and you let him kind of be the end zone offensive creator, that might be a more effective way to use it. But I think Luke Evangelista is somebody to really watch. He was somebody that I was watching last year too as a potential breakout candidate, and I definitely think that there's potential for him to be that again for the Predators here. He's kind of my main dark horse like guy to break out into the top six because I have a lot of high faith for Luke Evangelista, and I'm hoping he does because his defensive numbers are good. It's just the offense, right? His rush ability is really good, but it's just the finishing that really needs to get lifted up. And if he can do that, again, like you're looking at somebody who could become a very effective secondary scorer, and then all of a sudden now the Predators' offense looks a lot more dangerous. Cole Smith is kind of in the same boat. Defensively, really strong defensive, bottom, middle of the lineup kind of forward. The offense just isn't really there. Pretty mediocre offensive numbers. If he can still remain to be like a defensive like stalwart for this team and be kind of a primary guy on that, like he's one of their better shorthanded players. His penalty numbers are among the best on the team. If he can be that third line forward, being a defensive presence and helping mitigate some of those chances against, like he did last year, right? Like it's not like they did a bad job of that last season. I mean, they're 20th, but like compared to where they ended up, right? Like they were significantly better at stopping chances than the ones they allowed. And Cole Smith is a big part of that. So it's a matter of continuing to build on that and continuing to, maybe try to find a bit of an offensive game. Obviously, going into your age 30 season, it's tough to develop new skills. But even if he's just a low event, middle of the lineup guy that you can put out there in defensive situations and rely on, that's pretty good value for what he is. So I think that's the ideal place for him. I think that he was possibly being forced up the lineup in times last season and put into unfavorable matchups, but just as your kind of defensive low event third liner shorthanded guy, I think that Cole Smith could still be a pretty useful player for this team. Eric Howell is a guy they picked up, and I've never been like a big Eric Howell fan. He had moments in New Jersey, and his defensive numbers are pretty solid, but like 34 years old. Again, like it's another old player that this team has, right? It's like Barry Trotz just loves these guys that were good like 10 years ago, when he was coaching the Islanders, and Eric Howell is one of those guys that was he was a solid third line center, 4 or 5 years ago, and now he's probably somebody you'd rather have on your fourth line, as like a competent fourth line center. I don't think he's bad, but like there's not a ton of offense here, right? Like his play driving's fine, but it's not great. His penalty kill is good, and this again, like their special teams is good. Like there's nothing wrong with the Predator special teams, right? Their power play and their penalty kill should both be fairly effective. Defensively, he's solid, but like there's not a ton of offensive upside here. He's not playing against particularly strong competition. I don't know what the Eric Howell pickup does for this team. It gives them a third line center, I guess, but it doesn't really move the needle. And like you need everything else to go the way that I've kind of went over it needs to go before Eric Howell becomes like effective on this team, and that's kind of the main issue here, right? Like that's the big problem, right? That's the big question is like, can they fix those things to make a pickup like this matter, right? Because like Eric Howell doesn't move the needle unless the rest of the team is good, and then it's like, oh my god, then they also have like a pretty competent bottom line center on their team. But like Eric Howell's not moving the needle for them. It's fine. Like it's fine. I don't think it's a bad pickup, but it just doesn't really make a lot of sense for where this team was at least last year, unless Barry Trotz still thinks that they can be great. Which again, there is a path for that to happen, but it's just there's so many things that need to go right. It's kind of like the Disney villain like master plan, where like 50 things had to go right for like the plan to come to fruition, and if one of those things goes wrong, then like it all falls apart. And that's kind of what Barry Trotz feels like right now, right? He feels like a Disney villain concocting his master plan, and the likelihood of it actually working is pretty low. Zachary LaRue is somebody else I wanted to touch on here, because although his underlying numbers don't look great, as a younger player, I'm really not concerned about that, right? He's somebody that I just kind of want to see them give more of an opportunity to. I wanted to see him continue to get pretty substantial looks, right? Like his defensive ratings were fine. His offense really wasn't there, but again, like he's a young player. He's playing a very minimal role last season. I'd like to see them give him a much larger look, and he's definitely a player that I'm watching forward to, maybe push up into a third line like offensive kind of position. Maybe you play him with some of these defensive guys, right? You play him with like a Cole Smith or an Eric Howla, and you give him another offensive player like a Fedor Svechkov, and you see what they can do. I think he's somebody that could definitely bounce around this lineup. There's definitely a lot of opportunity for a guy like Zach LaRue to get an opportunity to finally break into the NHL fully. So he's somebody I'm excited about to see kind of what happens this year with him, because he had a lot of potential coming out of the draft. I still think a lot of that's there. Let's give him a shot to prove it. Looking at this blue line, like I said in the intro, it's Roman Josi and a bunch of guys, right? Like it's they go and they go get Nick Hague, and they pay Nick Hague a lot of money to be a third pair defenseman who's okay. I like the Nick Perbix signing. I really do. But like Nick Perbix isn't moving the needle here, and the right side of this blue line is just brutal, right? Like Nick Blankenberg, Justin Barron, and Nick Perbix is not ideal. And even the left side, right outside of Roman Josi, like Brady Shea and Nicholas Hague is not. It's not great. So I'm just. Let's just start with Roman Josi. Roman Josi is awesome. I don't know what else to say about him. He's getting older now, which is a concern. There is the concern for a bit of regression, but Roman Josi is really good at like everything. He's a great offensive player. He's super underrated defensively, and maybe not in terms of like his, he's not a great defender, but like he's better than people give him credit for. There's not much else to say here, right? Like Roman Josi is the staple of this blue line. He's been for since they moved Shea Weber, basically, and he's doing it basically on his own again, and he is so underappreciated by most NHL fans, it seems, because he's not getting the playoff spots anymore, and he's not getting the big looks. Maybe a good run in the Olympics gives him that spotlight back again, but yeah, I really like Roman Josi. He's awesome. I feel like there's not really it's like there's not a ton to say about him that people already haven't. He's great. I protect him, like give him a chance. Obviously, the injuries or the sickness that he has right now is tough. We'll see kind of what happens with that. But if he's good to go, he's still going to be one of the better defensemen in the NHL. But that's obviously a big question mark in terms of his health, if he's able to come back, and if he's able to come back at full strength. So that's really, I mean, if he doesn't, man, like yikes. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding in Nashville if he doesn't. Brady Shea, on the other hand, one of the worst defensive seasons for a defenseman, period, especially in the role that he was given in a long time in the NHL at his level, right? There's been some like third pair defensemen that have been worse technically, but like yikes. The offense was okay. His expected numbers actually weren't bad, but his actual point totals and generated offense weren't great. He has to bounce back, right? Like he needs to, because they paid him $7 million a season for 7 years to be the number 2 guy on this blue line beside Roman Josi, and he didn't even look like the number 4 guy on a team, right? Like he looked like a bottom pair defenseman last year. That's what he played like, and you can't be paying a guy like that long, that much money to be your bottom pair to be like a bottom pair defenseman level player. He has, now I'm not saying he has to become a number 2 on a team, because I don't think he was ever going to get to that point, but like he needs to be a competent second pair defenseman. and he just wasn't last season. And I don't know, like when we talked about the forwards, there was potential for development, and I could see it. Like there's a world where I can see like Jonathan Marchessault bouncing back and being, the player that he used to be. But Brady Shea has never really shown it outside of the Rod Brind'Amour system. He certainly didn't show it last year. I really don't have a lot of faith in Brady Shea like suddenly bouncing back to Carolina Hurricanes Brady Shea. I just don't. I think it was a bad move at the time. I think it was an uninformed move by a guy who was never in a front office, and here we are, right? Like this is the result of that, and it's a contract that really could hinder this team for a long time because I think it sucks. And to be frank, like that's blunt, but like it doesn't look good. And maybe Brady Shea comes out and he looks incredible next season, and great, like good for him. I just don't see it happening. Nicholas Hague is another one we can add to these contracts that don't make sense. Like Nicholas Hague's a third pair defenseman. Everything that he's shown has looked like a third pair defenseman. It's not like he's sitting there like Jalen Chatfield, who's putting up great analytical numbers in weak competition. Nicholas Hague is putting up mediocre numbers against poor competition on a team that was really good, right? Like there was no excuse for him to he was placed in like the most favorable situation. He was probably in the best like defensive system from the start of his career till now, like in terms of like talent around him, right? Like that defenseman room was loaded, and he really hasn't ever been more than a third pair defenseman. And Barry Trotz, very similar to Brady Shea, is paying him like a second pair defenseman, like a good second pair defenseman. And I just like now he is going into his age 26 season, so I guess there's room for development. But like this is a player that's never shown anything that's made me think Nicholas Hague should be a strong second pair defenseman, right? Like in Vegas, it's like Nicholas Hague's a fine third pair guy, right? Like he's good, he's fine. I don't see it. I don't see the vision with him. And I'd be really worried about this contract as well if I'm a Nashville Predators fan, especially for Blue Line that's this week behind Roman Josi. If these are the contracts we're handing out to Brady Shea and Nicholas Hague for the net, like if that's the staples of your Blue Line for the next 4 years, I'd be concerned. I really would be. And there's not much in his game that gives me a bunch of excitement for him to be like anything more than a good like fifth defenseman. Maybe he can become a good fourth defenseman, but like you're not paying him like that. You're paying him like somebody who's a 3 who you want to maybe move up to be a top pair guy. Nah, I just don't see it. Justin Barron, it seems like we're kind of just round and round we go, right? Like Justin Barron, he didn't show a lot in Montreal. They moved him for Carrier, which I guess isn't that big of a move, but like how much better would this Blue Line be with Alex Carrier right now? Again, like Justin Barron, I guess still has room to grow, so there's potential there. But again, like he hasn't shown any reason for me to be optimistic about his development and his growth because he hasn't been able to put that together. And one of the most porous defensive players in the league doesn't bring a lot of offense. I'd be concerned. Like again, like I don't see anything here that jumps out to me. And it's like, oh my god, this is a guy that's going to be great. I'd be concerned about the Blue Line. I really would be. But there is one thing I like to end these on a bit of hope. Nick Perbix rocks. Nick Perbix is like the perfect third pair defenseman. I love Nick Perbix. I think there's potential, right? He's going to his age 28 season. There's potential he plays in the top 4 this year in Nashville because he's just that good, and the Blue Line is that bad. Nick Perbix, offensively, great play driver, super underrated puck carrier, generates a ton of offense. His defensive numbers are actually like not bad. They're pretty they're above league average. Super, super, super effective third pair defenseman. Now, he hasn't had to play in very tough situations, right? Tampa Bay sheltered him, was able to shelter him because of how good Tampa Bay's Blue Line has been in the Nick Perbix era. He's not going to have that luxury in Nashville. And that, we'll see if his numbers dwindle. I think that he'll be good, and they really didn't bet a lot to get him. So I like it. Like, I think even if he doesn't work out, like the acquisition cost was so low that it doesn't really matter. But I think Nick Perbix could be a super underrated player here, and I think Predators fans are going to love him just in terms of what he can do to add a bit more excitement to this Blue Line that really, really lacks it and really doesn't have anybody that that excites you when you look at the roster outside of Roman Josi, who his health is still a question. Finally, looking at the goalies, I'm gonna be honest with you. Justice Animan is fine. He's a competent backup. That's not a problem. The real question here is UC Saros, right? Now, I still have him at 80 overall. I still have him as a top 10 goalie in the NHL. Definitely not as high as I've had him in a couple past years, right? But I'm giving him a bit of the benefit of the doubt because I think that there's still something there. Now, he needs to prove it. The decline has been real. He's been in decline for 3 years. I get that, right? His penalty kill numbers are still unreal. He's still one of the best penalty kill goalies in the league. Again, another reason why the special teams is very good. But his even strength numbers have really, really dropped off. His goals saved below expected has not been good the last couple of years. And his overall has just dropped the last 3 seasons. He has to bounce back. None of the other conversations here matter if UC Saros isn't, a top 6 goalie in the NHL, 5-6 goalie in the NHL this season, right? Every other conversation that we're having here does not matter in terms of the Predators bouncing back and being a playoff team if UC Saros isn't great. And he hasn't been the last 2 seasons. I'm still giving him the benefit of the doubt. I still believe in him because he's proven it in the past. And I gave John Gibson the same leash, and then John Gibson just never found his game again. So I'm a little concerned that the same thing's going to happen here again, right? I didn't jump off the John Gibson train fast enough. I haven't jumped off the UC Saros train yet. I really don't want him to prove me wrong because I love UC Saros. His story just being the small goalie that everybody overlooked. And again, this is a guy that's getting paid to be this guy, right? He signed for another 8 seasons, right? His contract hasn't even started yet. This is a guy that needs to be one of the best goalies in the league. They paid him like that, right? The Predators have all these albatross contracts that have to work out, and UC Saros is at the pinnacle of that. And he has to bounce back this season. If he has another bad year, if he declines again, man, the Predators are in trouble. And none of these other conversations matter if UC Saros isn't great. Finally, look at the special teams, and again, it's a positive note here, right? This is easily the best penalty kill and power play unit we've seen in this series so far. And the penalty kill unit isn't as good, but the power play is very effective, right? You look at that top unit: Forsberg, O'Reilly, Stamkos, Josi, and Marchessault. It's a very strong unit. And whether or not that's actually the unit they run, this is just what Puckpedia had. But Luke Evangelista is another guy that I could definitely improve on that power play. Fedor Sveshkov again, Michael Bunting, we talked about earlier. There's a lot of talent on this power play. I don't have an issue with the special teams. The special teams definitely the strength of this team, regardless of if we see some positive regression from the offense and defense. The special teams is still going to be the focal point of this team's success, as well as goaltending. And both those things need to come together along with the positive regression for the Nashville Predators to push for a playoff spot. And that's a lot to ask for, and that's why they're 26. All right, so now joining us to talk about the Nashville Predators is a good friend of mine, somebody that I've known for a long time. Old school fans of NBA hockey will remember the Triple Shift podcast that we used to do together. So this is going to be kind of a trip down memory lane. We had him on last year for Nashville. We have him on again. Jeff Middleton. This is going to be a long list of places that he currently works at, so bear with me here. He's a sports intern with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette currently. He's the assistant sports editor and hockey beat writer for Miami Student newspaper. He covers the Calgary Flames for Flame Nation. He covers the New York Yankees for Pinstripe Alley. He's the play-by-play and color commentator for Red Hawk Radio at Miami University. He used to cover the Nashville Predators for the Hockey Writers. He used to do some work for the Hockey News, and he's a Nashville Predators super fan. I think I got everything, but Jeff Middleton is here. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's good to be back. Obviously, I love being able to talk to you still. It brings back some good memories from the good old days. That was
Absolutely.
God, that's probably 4 years ago now.
I was gonna say it was a while ago.
Yeah.
I'm going into my senior year of college, and I was running good old NHL analysis. I started that sophomore year of high school, so no, it's been a while, man.
That's crazy. Yeah, it did time fly. I started NBA hockey at the beginning of COVID, so.
I would say that same time frame.
Yeah,
for sure.
Crazy. So I'm still kicking around on Instagram, and you've moved on to better things. So, there you go. But
Hey, you gotta respect the grind, man.
exactly. But today we're here to talk about the Nashville Predators, who technically you don't cover on like a formal basis anymore. But I mean, you're always tweeting about the Predators, and you're obviously still a big fan of them. So I'm pretty confident that you'll be able to provide some better insight than I can, despite the like hour-long video that everybody just sat through of me talking about them. But I guess like after last summer, the expectations in Nashville were very high. They were very aggressive in the offseason. They brought in guys like Marchessault and Stamkos, Brady Shea as well, and I think we can say it was probably the worst possible outcome of a season that they could have ever happened. So resetting our viewpoint on this team, what are your general expectations for what fans should expect from the Predators this year?
Yeah, I think last year was obviously hard to watch a lot throughout the season. There were obviously, some spurts where it looked like they had put some stuff together and, maybe they were connecting the dots. And then it was like one step forward and two giant steps backward, whether it felt like if the goaltending was on, then the offense couldn't score, or the offense was on and then the goaltending couldn't step up and there was no defense. It was really inconsistent for every piece of the puzzle for the Predators last season. And I think as far as expectations go, obviously no one was expecting them to finish, bottom of the league last year after those pickups, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, all those guys coming in, and, in probably the biggest free agency that the Predators franchise has ever had. And, when you get to that point, you have all of this fan excitement, and then it's just an absolute disappointment throughout the year, consistently frustrating to watch too. Not like they were consistently in games and consistently competing in games. There were a lot of times throughout the season where it felt like there just wasn't anything that was going well. There was, it was constant disappointment after constant disappointment. And it honestly, towards the end of the season, for a lot of fans, I think it felt like it just got old. People were tuning out, as a lot of fans do at the end of the season for bad teams. But especially, if you're a fan of the Chicago Blackhawks, if you're a fan of the San Jose Sharks, if you're a fan of these teams at the bottom, you know, at the very least, you understand where you are. You understand the position you're in. You have a Connor Bedard, you have a Macklin Celebrini, and those guys, are leading you into the future. You're in a rebuild. Whereas the Predators, their entire philosophy was, let's go out, let's get these big names, sign them to contracts. We know they can win Stanley Cups. Obviously, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, both guys who have won Stanley Cups. Like, let's go out and get these high pedigree veteran players to help our younger guys that are coming in or are already in there, and let's try and make them run. Like, let's just do this. We've got the goaltending. Defense is a little iffy, but it's we can work with it. Obviously, Roman Josi is still very, very good. But then everything collapses. And that's what I think really, frustrated people, was that a lot of fans, myself included, have been calling for a rebuild. I said this core is not good enough. When they traded Yaroslav Askarov away to sign 30-year-old UC Saros to an 8-year deal, I was completely confused, didn't make any sense, because I didn't think it was going to work with this core. And I think there are a handful of fans, or not even not a handful, more than a handful of fans that agreed with that sentiment and were confused with it. But when you have, Barry Trotz preaching about this, we're going to make the playoffs, we're going to go on a run, like anything can happen in the playoffs, you got to get in, all of this stuff, and then you end up bottom 3 in the league, that's really frustrating. And now going into next season, I don't think there's any expectations except for the team to not be very good again. And as much as that's annoying or frustrating, considering Barry Trotz wants to make the playoffs every year, if you're employed by an NHL organization who doesn't want to make the playoffs every year, it's frustrating for fans because it's just another year of, well, I'm sick of hearing that anything can happen if you make the playoffs. And, that's kind of where they are right now. Is you need Steven Stamkos to score more than 20 something goals. He scored 27 goals, which is still pretty solid, but he only registered 53 points. He was, a minus 36. And then for Marchessault, he had 21 goals, 56 points. Like the highest, the highest scoring player was Philip Forsberg, and he was 20 points ahead of Jonathan Marchessault, who was in second place, 76 points. 76 points, 56 points. Like that just can't happen. The guys that they brought in to score did not score. And bringing in Brady Shea, he was, I mean this with all respect, he was awful last season. Like he was not very good. And when you sign him to a 7x7 deal, that's saying something. That's saying you trust this guy to be a cornerstone of your defense for the time coming. And when you have your first season under contract be as bad as it was, it's not going to help fans gain any confidence. And so, that's a long-winded way of saying that next year, I don't think fans really have any high expectations as much as the management team might say, we're shooting for the stars here. We're going for the playoffs. We want to make a run, all this other stuff. I don't think that fans have any confidence in this team to do that. And I think, that comes along with a lack of confidence in the head coach, a lack of confidence in, maybe guys that are older to just keep scoring, a lack of the guys who are on defense. It's a whole, mesh of things that just have not gone well for the Preds. And next year, it feels like it's going to be kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it definitely was an absolute letdown. I mean, I was really high on Nashville too, as were a lot of people in the.
It's hard not to be.
Yeah, I mean, it was an exciting off season, and they kind of filled the. If you win the off season, it doesn't really mean much, if you can't win on the ice. But I guess kind of building off that, like if this team is to exceed expectations and is going to push for even a wild card spot, what's kind of one thing that you think would have to happen to make that a reality?
You need the guys that were brought in to score. I mean, that was really the problem, especially through the first half of the season. I think that was really the issue. They UC Saros is obviously always going to be the backbone of this team, no matter what. That's why they signed him to as long of a deal as they did for as much as they did. I mean, granted, it was a discount considering how much he could have gotten paid elsewhere, but you need UC Saros to have a better year. And I don't fully fault. It's hard. Like it's always been hard for me to fault UC Saros when he's had the teams that he's had in front of him. There have been times when he hasn't been good. I think last year was probably one of his worst years as a Predator. And, that says something as much about the team in front of him as it does himself. I don't think it's fully on him at all. But I think it comes down to, can you get Jonathan Marchessault back? Can you get Steven Stamkos back? Like you're paying, I mean, you can't pay Steven Stamkos as much as you're paying him for 50 something points. It just can't happen. Obviously 27 goals is solid production, but you need more from him. And the same thing goes with Marchessault. You need the three guys that you brought in last season to make the impact that you thought they were going to have. You need Brady Shea to be a rock. Like you need Brady Shea to be the Carolina Hurricanes Brady Shea. And obviously that's a nuanced discussion. Rod Brendamore's system is phenomenal. We all know that. But, Brady Shea was a rock in that system. And that's what you need. You've got, Roman Yossi's future as of right now is questionable. He says he's going to play, but he got that concussion and now he was diagnosed with POTS, and that's, super dangerous. Obviously wishing him all the best, but that means something big for the Predators as an organization, not having question marks around a guy like Roman Josi, who has been that rock, who has been that cornerstone, no matter how good or bad the team has been. So if you're going to, forfeit some of the production there, then you need some of the production to come back where you were expecting it to last season. So if there was one thing I would definitely say, it would be the guys that they brought in. They need more scoring. They need their depth guys to step up. But most importantly, they need, their top end guys to play like top end guys. Forsberg excluded. He's been, just as good as you need him to be.
For sure. So I guess just kind of, building on that as well. If you could kind of take over as GM for a day in Nashville, what is like the one area of this team that you think desperately needs to improve?
Well, before the offseason, I would say the right hand defense, and honestly, I would probably say that still. I think one of the biggest and most confusing moves was going out and getting Nick Hague and signing him to as big of a deal as they did. appalled at a $5.5 million cap hit for him. Um, but yeah, I mean the right hand defense is just not good. I love the Nick Perbix pickup. I thought that was I thought that was a really good piece of work done by Barry Trotz, but it's just not good enough. Outside of Nick Perbix, it's Justin Barron and Nick Blankenberg, and I know that the Preds are high on Justin Barron, and that I'm not. I'm really not. I thought that they might be suitors for Aaron Ekblad. I think that would have been an interesting play if I could go back in time. Obviously, it would be Ekblad wanting to leave, his team that he won 2 Stanley Cups with, but that's a guy that you want to try and get, on the trade market or in free agency or anything else. So yeah, I think that still the biggest issue is their right-handed defense, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out this upcoming season.
Yeah. So I like to usually end these with some more positivity, especially for these teams at the bottom,
Yeah.
because it can get pretty dire for some of these fan bases. So last 2 questions are more formed around that. Who is a prospect or a player that hasn't been a full-time NHLer yet that you're really excited about getting an opportunity this year in Nashville?
Yeah, I would say the closest guy is Tanner Mollendijk. I'm a big fan of Tanner Mollendijk. The kid can flat out skate. Like if he can't do anything else, man, he can wheel. It's super fun to watch. He was on the cusp of making the team last season, and didn't end up making it, and ended up playing in Milwaukee. But um, yeah, he's a really interesting prospect, and a guy that has been, like I said, on the cusp, and looking for a chance to kind of get his name thrown into the mix and have some consistent time in the NHL. So I would say if there's one guy to look for, it would be not Brady Martin, Tanner Mollendijk. Although Brady Martin's name apparently has come up, as a possibility if he proves himself in camp. Maybe he gets some time in the NHL. I don't see it. I have my qualms with all of that. As a lot of Predators fans do. Not to say he's not a talented player and that he won't make the NHL, but this season seems like kind of a stretch for him. But yeah, Tanner Mollendijk is somebody I would, if you're a casual hockey fan, if you like guys who can skate, guys who can produce offense, guys who are great playmakers from the blue line. Tanner Mollendijk's your guy to watch this upcoming season.
Yeah, for sure. And the final thing is just: is there a player on the Predators that isn't one of the Roman Yossi's or Philip Forsbergs that doesn't get a lot of media attention that you really want to shout out as one of your guys that you really like and you think needs to get more praise?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fair amount of guys that don't get the praise that they deserve, especially after last season. I think it's kind of hard for anybody to get the praise that they deserve. I think there's a couple guys. One guy I'd point out is Fedor Svechkov. Him and Luke Evangelista are 2 guys that have been pretty consistent. I think you're looking this season for a little bit more out of Evangelista, but he's a guy that can make plays. It's really just all he does. He's smooth. He's silky with the puck. He knows where to be. He can find passing lanes. So definitely Luke Evangelista is one of them, and then Fedor Svechkov, like I said, he would be my guy just because not only is he's an exciting player to watch, man. He was center in the second, third line, usually third line, unless there's an injury. But yeah, Svechkov, he's a big body. He's physical. He can really shoot the puck. I think that's one of the most underrated skills of his game. Like he can shoot the puck really well when he finds open space. But he's just a really smart player, and that's kind of how he was dubbed in his draft year. Was a guy that maybe he's not going to be 90 points a year, 100 points a year, maybe not even 80, 70 points a year, but he's going to be a guy that you can always rely on consistently to make plays, go out, play a hard-nosed game, and not forego his skill while doing that. So definitely a guy that I think is more of a role player as of now. Doesn't mean he can't move up this year. I could definitely see it. I think Barry Trotz wants him to, and I think that's part of the plan moving forward. But yeah, Fedor Svechkov, man, he's a guy to watch for sure. That's going to get consistent NHL time this year, and may get a big opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all I got for you. Feel free. This is kind of your moment. Plug whatever, wherever you want to plug, where people can find you, and let them know where they can read more of your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you plugged it pretty well at the beginning. I'm pretty much everywhere you look. So yeah, I would basically just plug my Twitter, JJMid04. Go follow me. I post literally about anything you want. If I'm almost done with my internship in Pittsburgh, but if you have any desire to read about some of the Penguins draft picks, some of the Penguins development camp, anything like that, I wrote about that. U.S. Open, everything there was happening in Pittsburgh this summer, and then yeah, consistent at the Miami Student, our student newspaper, writing about college hockey. Got some really exciting news coming up in September about college hockey writing as well. So that's going to be awesome. Look out for that. And then, yeah, just Pinstripe Alley, all the places you said already. So just go check the Twitter. I'm posting about anything and everything.
Yeah, he can't even remember the whole list. So yeah. But thanks, Jeff, again for coming on, and it's always great being able to talk about the Predators or just talking in general with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
So there you have it. Thanks again to Jeff for joining us for the Nashville Predators episode. Go check out his stuff. He's great. He's a longtime friend of the channel. And thank you for watching this video. Team number 26 is done. Team number 25 should be coming out shortly. Thank you again for enjoying this series. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. Make sure to comment down below what you think of the Nashville Predators. And we'll see you for team number 25.